now it's time to look ahead to one of the most eagerly anticipated middle distance contests in Europe, namely the King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Stakes. And the obvious place to start, Chris, is with the very impressive winner of the Coronation Cup, St Nicholas Abbey.
Yeah, he was really impressive in that race. He was disappointing in this last year, but I would forgive him that really. It was a bit of a mess of a race. What this horse does is travel very well, and he's got a real good turn of foot. I think we saw that probably to best effect in the Breeders' Cup last year. He's got loads of class, he's consistent, and in terms of ratings, he's up there with the very best of them. So I think he's the one to beat. I
went along in my anorak and rustled it quite loudly at the London Racing Club, and one of the people in the audience pointed out what a poor record St Nicholas Abbey has comparatively, going right-handed like Ascot compared to his left-handed form. Are you concerned about that, Steve?
It has to be a concern. The last 5 times he's gone round a right-hand bend, he's been beaten, and his 2 most impressive victories have been the Coronation at Epsom, left-handed, and the Breeders' Cup Turf, left-handed. So it has to be a concern. It might just be he's maturing. He didn't handle Epsom the season before last. We handled it perfectly well this year. So it's a possibility rather than something I'm buying into. But to say, it has to be a worry. If he does reproduce his very best form, then as Chris says, he's the one to beat.
Okay, so that's St Nicholas Abbey. But the horse who won this race last year is Nathaniel. Let's hear from his trainer, John Gosden.
He likes the track. He likes turning, swinging bottom. He likes the proper test of a horse up the hill into the straight, and William rode him nicely in both the King Edward and the King George, and he did it well, and he likes it. And there's no reason that if he's in good order for the King George, he won't put in a huge showing again.
Do you think the run in the Eclipse means that he's likely to be spot on for the King George?
A 3-week gap, yes. At a 2-week gap, no. I feel it's so close that every day between those races, when you go middle distance, a mile and a quarter, mile and a half, every day is important. If it was a sprint race, no problem. No problem at all. Run them twice in a week, because a sprinter's not going that far. It's explosive energy. You can play with them between races. Once you get over a distance, it's a different ball game at top level, you know. It was on the fast side of good in the Champion Stakes at Ascot. He can handle it fine. He's just like everything out of the family. He just finds soft ground, rather like the filly that won the Guinness this year of Aiden's. She was running on good to firm. Everyone else was on soft to holding. He just flies over it, you know, it's no problem to him. And it slows the others down. That's probably the point.
And how about Masked Marvel? Were you disappointed with his run in the Coronation Cup?
We took the viewpoint that we were going to attack early, and he did attack early, and that cost him second. He liked the ground, but he doesn't much like the track. And then when we ran him in the Jockey Club, he's fine on the track. The ground was soft. He's a horse who hasn't yet had what he had in Doncaster, when he had a nice pace, a beautiful flat galloping track, and good to firm ground. And he's in phenomenally good form right now. I could see no problem in going to the King George, hoping that we get nice ground.
And the track would suit him there?
Yeah, he'd love that track.
So, Nathaniel then, Steve, particularly suited by Ascot?
Twice, of course, a distance winner, including in this race last year. I think the more rain we have in the build-up, I think will suit him. He's got everything in his favour.
Masked Marvel disappointed me in the Coronation Cup, did he you?
Yeah, it's the second time he's run not very well at Epsom. Maybe didn't like the track, and he's going to need a dry run up to the King George.
A horse that we may not yet have seen the best of is Sea Moon. He was a really impressive winner of the Great Voltigeur last season, and he won the Hardwick at Royal Ascot really well. Let's hear from his trainer, Sir Michael Stout.
It was probably his best performance to date. You know, he'd been just very workmanlike at Goodwood, but he'd made running for the first time in his life, and Ryan said that didn't suit him. But nevertheless, he had to really up his game to go and win the Hardwick, which he duly did.
What sort of pleased you about it? I mean, I thought he travelled very well, for example.
He travelled really well. Yeah, you know, you were always very hopeful from a long way out. I'd be very happy to see a nice bit of rain because we know he likes it, but he's also performed well and fast.
Do you think he needs to step up to win a King George?
We don't know the final field at the moment, but he's got to step up a bit to beat St Nicholas for starters. You know, never mind any of the others, but Nathaniel would be another possibility. So yeah, he'll have to go again.
Would you be hoping he could?
Maybe I would be satisfied with a Hardwick performance and hope for the best, you know. He's entitled to go for the race, and we're entitled to hope.
I think the Hardwick is a really strong one this year. I think it's a really good Hardwick, and it wouldn't be the first Hardwick winner to go on and win a King George. He's a big, big player.
the easy ground thing is probably a little bit of a concern. You wouldn't want to see it really quick for him. But on a couple of occasions now in his career, he has looked very impressive. The Great Voltager, most notably last year. And he was back to that level of form, as Steve says, in a strong Hardwick. So he's definitely one that you've got to take seriously, particularly when you consider he's got that Sir Michael Stout profile of an older horse improver.
Dunedin is a proven high-class performer on the global stage, Chris. He's won a Melbourne Cup, a Hong Kong Vase, and he's come over here to Britain and performed really well twice now this season. Yeah,
I think particularly the run in the Hardwick was a really good effort from him. Watching that run back a couple of times now, I get the impression he was maybe a little bit unlucky to not win that race. He was certainly unlucky to not be a lot closer. He was locked up with nowhere to go and travelling well on the turn as the race developed. The leaders got away with him. He then picked up in the straight under relatively minimal pressure, and he was stopped again before running on at the line. He put further distance between himself and Red Caddo than he had done before, and I think that he's probably still improving, this horse. He's got proven Group 1 form. I really like his claims.
Don't buy into the fact that he was outpaced. You'll read that in papers and form books. I thought he was just trying to get out of the way of horses who weren't going very fast in front of him. I think he's a high-class horse, fully effective at a mile and a half, fully effective at Ascot, has a big chance.
Brown Panther won a handicap over the course and distance of the King George at last year's Royal Meeting. Is he good enough at Group 1 standard?
I think he'll probably fall short in what is probably going to be a really good Group 1. He came back to form at Pontefract last time out. That was a listed race, however, not the strongest of listed races either, and he's going to have more on his plate.
It was a much better performance, Steve, I thought, in the Prince of Wales Stakes from Reliable Man.
He's a real good horse on his best form. 3 lengths at Ascot, that was a step in the right direction, but it also tells you he needs more.
Japan is a growing power base when it comes to flat racing. They've brought horses over here before and they have made an impact, not least Deep Brillant's sire, Deep Impact.
Yeah, and one of the key points about him, we don't know a great deal about him, but we do know that he's got a fantastic pedigree. He's got a good level of form over in Japan, a Japanese Derby winner. All of his form is on rattling fast ground, and I think he'd want those conditions to be seen to best effect.
Imperial Monarch is an interesting contender, I think, Chris. Still unexposed at the distance of a mile and a half.
Yeah, I think that there's improvement to come from this horse. If the ground's quick, he'll be going on a faster surface than he's ever gone on before. That would be a little bit of a worry, I suppose. You can scratch his French Derby run. Nothing went right there. It was just a mess of a race. And before that, in the Classic Trial at Sandown, he'd done pretty well. He won quite tidily. He's a horse going in the right direction. He should improve for the extra distance.
I think his guesswork to how good he is. He may or may not have won the Sandown Classic Trial, but for the ride he was given around the outside. He might have won anyway, but he beat Thoughtworthy, who was, well beaten in the Derby. And subsequently, he had, as Chris said, no chance in the French Derby. He had a terrible run through. I have no idea how good he is.
I'm going to go for Sea Moon. I think he's still open to some improvement. I think conditions are going to be ideal, and he's proven over the course and distance.
I'm going to go with St Nicholas Abbey. The thing about him going right-handed, a little bit of a concern, but he travels very well. He's got a smart turn of foot, and he's a 4-time Group 1 winner. He'll do for me.
I'm going to go for Dunedin. I think the Hardwick was a really good renewal this year, and I thought Dunedin was unlucky in it.